ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Glo LLC, an all-natural skincare company that helps you glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your daily self-care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week and have intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. And often we have expert guests with us. Today, we do not. We had a cancellation, which,
Yes.
I was thinking about it as we come on, Shannon.
Yeah.
Like, this is episode 138.
Mm-hmm.
For a live podcast, I think I can count on one hand. Like, when sometimes, because, often we consult for other podcasters who are starting because we have been doing this a while and because we are ranked in the top 10% globally. And so part of, when we talk about podcasts and shows, people always ask us, but if you go live, what if a guest doesn't show up, right?
Yeah.
Yes. What do we say when that happens? First of all, it rarely happens.
It rarely happens, right? And I love having a conversation with Christine. Hey, Sammy. Hey, Fee. How are you ladies doing? Thank you for watching today.
Another awesome podcast group.
Oh, and I think about that conversation all the time. Like when I think about Sammy and Fee, I think about setting boundaries and having conversations between people. And it goes with even what we're talking about, things that shift, right? Logistics change. We have to be honest with that. Sometimes it's, no, this is past the boundary. This can't happen, right? And that might be on a personal level when you're dealing with something. We talk about self-care. But on another situation, if with business, when things change, teams have emergencies, how do you pivot? How do we do it all? And again, I love having conversations with you. And you wrote about financial wellness last year. So our in-house financial wellness expert can be the guest expert today. Yeah.
I always get nervous about that because my folks always used to tell me, you know what an expert is?
What's an expert?
It's a drip under pressure. Is that right? Expert. I can't remember. It doesn't make sense even now that I say it out loud. But you know how you have those family sayings? So you're like, where did that come from?
And see, you got to remember, I didn't grow up with my family, so it makes sense that that's the thing. But I've been able to take from all these different places, and it reminds me of Women Connected in Wisdom, the way we do it. But it makes sense. And when we talk about financial habits, that's what I think about, right? The conditioning, like we were talking about, and the things that you get from the places that you're from. Like, I think about your question and what were you allowed to spend money on?
Right.
I was allowed to spend money on clothes, food, and excursions with my friends, whether it was like the food court at the football games, right? Or the concession stand at the football games, or different things like that.
Yeah. And I was allowed to spend money on food and books and flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think about that. Like, it's really interesting, right? Our conditioning, as we were talking about Pavlov's dog, like, what are the things when it comes to financial wellness or any of the 8 dimensions of wellness, right? What works for us and what doesn't? Should we read to our listeners the definition that we're playing around with today?
Let's do it, because I definitely want to get into this conversation about side gigs and main gigs and how we fit those things together. But yes, let's come from this definition.
All right. Financial wellness is an intentional approach to your relationship with money as a tool. It includes stability with current finances, increasing positive financial behaviors like budgeting, reducing debt, saving, and investing, save lives, Financial wellness incorporates knowledge and skills that helps to change behavior, reduce financial stress, and creation of a strategic financial plan to reach desired financial goals.
So much stood out.
Right? Every time I read that definition, I think about our guest who came on and talked about, instead of calling it budgeting, calling
a nourishing spending plan.
A nourishing
Mhm.
spending plan.
Mhm.
Whew. Doesn't it sound more fun than budgeting, especially as we approach the holidays?
Yeah. And
Nourishing spending plan.
if we're gonna hold that in our mind, right? I like to think about it like that with money and time. I shared, I think it was last year, I was writing and listening to this audiobook. And to be honest with you, Christine, I did not finish this audiobook. So I said, let me go back and finish. I'm finishing all these books that I have open, right? Whether they're audio or print. And 168 hours, thinking about how many hours we have in a week, right? How would I be most nourished at the end of this week if I spent my time X way, right? And when you're coming from a side hustle to now your main source of income, that's definitely what you have to look at, right? It's a beautiful thing to have time freedom, which is part of financial freedom, right? Time and financial freedom. But sometimes if you have time freedom, that can mean you have $0. Now the point is when you're out here and able to make your schedule entirely your own, how do you balance the time between revenue generating activities, right? And activities that you know as an entrepreneur you might have to sacrifice for right now to not be paid and balance that with your other responsibilities.
So I want to clarify something for myself and for our listeners. The audiobook you were listening to
Hmm.
was 168 hours.
Yes.
You have more time than you think.
Yes.
All right. And that book is by Laura Vanderkam.
Hmm.
What bubbled up out of that book for you?
So right now it's, if you say you work, let's say 50 hours, do you really? Or did you leave early on Friday and you forgot you weren't there on Monday, so really you worked 32, you know? And stepping into the businesses this year is something I've talked a lot about. And when I think about that, I think about the schedule that used to be made for the managers. And I talk about it at the beginning of my chapter, right? Not even being able to put in a schedule request. And what I mean when I say that is not being able to see 2 weeks ahead. Not what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing next Thursday? You know? And of course, we like to reverse engineer that. I talk a lot about the 7 habits of highly effective people, starting with the end in mind. So if you know that at the end of the month, this is my revenue goal, then this is from that, that's how I reverse engineer what I should be spending my time on. And so the 168 hours, what bubbled up is, am I spending my time the right ratio and the right proportion on the things that I need to? And that'll change week to week, right? Again, Black Friday is coming up. So if you guys have a side hustle and you need to set up your emails for the sales that you're going to do while you're still at work, this week might look differently than last week did. Right. And that's also to make next week easier. And strategies like that are things that I think through when she's talking through the different stories and examples that she gives.
So, would you recommend that book to folks? Because you said at
Oh,
first you didn't finish it. Was that just because you got distracted? Because you often are reading 4 or 5
like
books
for
at a time.
yes,
So
yes. I would absolutely recommend it, because schedules are hard to build. Like it sounds simple, but schedules is a difficult task to wrap your mind around and to get expertise in. So I would absolutely do it. Listen to it, write down the questions, work through the hours in the way that she says, just to see what you actually spend your time on, right? You think that you spend, again, let's say 8 hours in a day working, but you went to the restroom, right? And then somebody called you, you talked to your friend for an hour, or was that 48 minutes? You know what I mean? Like, so you only worked 38 minutes and you thought you did a 2 hour block.
well, I always, this is something I think about in my life often because when people talk to me about my work and how much I have on my plate and what I get done, they're like, I don't know how you get done what you get done.
Mhm.
And you even bringing up the 7 habits of highly effective people, like that was written 30 years ago. And I probably read it 30 years ago. Like I
Mhm.
might need to go back and do a refresher. But
Yeah.
the things I remember out of Stephen Covey's work were you prioritize. And then the other thing is I think the acknowledgement that I will never get everything that's done on my to-do list. Like
Mhm.
there's just things that drop off because
Right.
and sometimes we circle back around and we say, yes, we're picking that back up.
Mhm.
But really that prioritization, right, in your
Mhm.
calendar of your self-care and your family and your communities and your work and that when you're at work, you're working, right?
Yes.
Like, and in that, and I can overwork. I mean, I want to admit
Me
that
too.
it
I
is
yeah.
something that, because I love my work, right?
Right.
We have a different problem than a lot of people, because a lot of people
Mhm.
think they're working, they're like, let me out of here. We're all like, oh, we got more to do. And
Right.
oh,
This book, that book, yeah.
and so it is, and work is a comfort to me,
Yeah.
especially
Yes.
this year, as most of the listeners know, I've had a lot of grief and loss, and I
Yes.
could lose myself in the work. And, sometimes I'm going to choose that instead of food or booze or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Work seems to be productive.
Mhm.
But I think about, well, I'm just going to speak for myself.
Please.
Sometimes when I'm not being efficient,
Okay.
because I'm caught up in the emotions of I procrastinated a task,
Mhm.
or I'm not sure how to do a task, or I don't want to ask for help. And so, but when I'm working, like when I get out of my own way,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So, what I've learned to do over the years is, if I'm struggling with something, I catch myself about, okay, is this procrastination, or do you need help? Do you need to phone a friend,
Mhm.
and do a body double session, because we talk about that often on the show.
Yeah, we
And that is one of my number one tips and tricks for myself and for my clients is, you make an appointment with somebody to do the work during that time. And they're not doing the work for you, you're doing the work, but it's a set time.
yes.
And so I think that part, when I think about being effective and I think about how many hours we have in the day.
Yeah, and I think we go a little bit deeper into that, right? I share with the listeners I'm getting ready to be part of this wedding, and I'm super excited. I'm a host and honored to be included in my friend Jessica's wedding from Kennesaw, right? And so me and the other hosts were texting, and I was telling her how we were body doubling, and she had to Google it, right? And sometimes I forget that the things that become second nature to us, and again, that we work into our habits, and it sounds simple, somebody else might be like, well, what is that? And that's exactly what they need. And so when we talk about body doubling, I had to hold myself accountable and make sure that I wasn't just putting more of the general things on the to-do list, right? What are actually the things that, again, like you said, are you're not getting done?
Mhm.
I have to sometimes I'll try to make it easier and say, I'm going to do this. No, you can do that by yourself. You need to do this, and really hold myself accountable and use that body doubling to and that joint work time to the best of my ability, right? For most effectiveness. And we also verbally tell each other what we're doing, just like we talk through sometimes with our goals and our wins for the week, right? Like, what do you want to get done on this call? And then we set how long we're going to talk work, maybe 45 minutes, what time we're going to check in. And then we say, okay, I'm done with that, I'm going to the next thing. So you get that conditioning and that affirmation, like, okay, I'm going to let you know when you get done, and you're going to celebrate it a little bit, and then we'll keep getting stuff done.
Yeah, and I would say pro tips for body doubling:
Yeah.
short periods. I mean, sometimes you can go long if you're writing a book or you're on
Right.
deadline, but
Yeah.
really it's usually an hour. And you do sprints, and you do 10-minute sprints or 15-minute sprints, and then
I
check
like
in with
that.
me. And I think the other thing I've learned the hard way is, like, it's not a social session. Like, you really clear, you're coming with the intention that you're holding space for each other. And so, and the other thing I love, because you and I do this, and Dr.
Yeah.
Cynthia Phillips and I do this, we put on focus music too. We put on music that is going to help us focus our intentions. And so sometimes we're working on marketing together. Sometimes we're working on content. Sometimes
Right.
we're working on our task list. You don't have to be working on the same thing, but the
Mhm.
concept of body doubling comes out of the ADHD world and attention deficit, and that having somebody to ground us, to be present with us, actually helps us get the work done. Because if you have ever had those moments that you have, like, even three things on your to-do list, and I call it squirreling. I start one thing and I go down a rabbit hole, or I squirrel about
Yeah.
something else, and then I look up and I've gotten other stuff done, or maybe not, but I
Mhm.
haven't gotten the thing done that I set out to do. So I love that. I love this is in talks of being effective. But I also, today our title is Turn Your Side Hustle into Your Main Source of Income.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that, and I know it was originally we had a guest, but you and I have done this. So
Yeah, definitely.
when you think about it, what do you think about?
What I was still thinking about is when you said you were talking about your to-do list, right? And we have the privilege, right, of having a business partner. And so not everything is on us. But what we still know is that if it doesn't happen today, it still needs to get done, right? And that's one of my favorite parts about how I've updated the way that I manage my time is highlighting. And I have that in the chapter, right? If this is on your to-do list, one, I try to make a realistic to-do list. So what's there? And then if it doesn't happen today, okay, but when is it going to happen? Because when you're changing your side hustle to your main source of income, there is not a team of people running around the building to take care of it when you didn't get it done because it's the end of your shift, like that's still going to be on your plate. And when you open the door back up, whether it's virtually or in person, it is on your desk to get done, so making sure that we're crossing those I's and dotting those T's. And like you were talking about setting up the system, there's always something that we're working on. But one of my favorite things to practice this year has been really pacing that rest and self-care through it. Like April Roberts was talking about high performers and overachievers and how a lot of times that can lead to burnout because we are so good at doing so much, which is great. But I also want to be great at resting, just like I'm great at executing, and that's what I think about right now when I think about that transition of roles, responsibilities, and logistics into the main source of income.
When we realized we weren't going to have a guest today, I love your wisdom and yes to all of that. And I wanted to share with you something that I thought was really funny, right?
Yes.
Because when we realized right before the show that it was going to be you and I just put into Amazon side hustle, right? And page 9 pages pulled up the books about side hustles, right? Like the first one was 100 side hustles, unexpected ideas for making extra money. But this was the one that cracked me up, and I thought it was very appropriate. And I may have to listen to this book.
Okay.
Says, don't start a side hustle, work less, earn more, and live free. And then when you go to the description, it says, don't trade your 40-hour work week for an 80-hour a week side hustle.
I want to know how they got to this. What's the solution though? Because it's true. It takes more time and money than you think. Yes.
Well, and that's the thing we want to be really transparent about and honest about. It wasn't like we've cut our workloads. Like
No.
but we are, working in our purpose and our passion. And so there's a lot of joy in it. But the other thing is, you were saying there's not a big team running around after you. There's also not somebody, automatically depositing money in your account.
Oh no, yes.
So that part, right?
Yeah. That flow, the river flow, you have to generate the flow. Yes. And the thing that I think about though, right, when it is a building and when there is somebody else making my schedule and all this stuff, I show up, right? I show up and I give effort. And so I know that it's there. I know that I know how to work effectively within a system and be an asset to the team. So now the goal is just to hone that energy, right? And really, when we talk about trusting your inner authority, what do you need to do next? Of course, it should be based on market research, your business plan, the strategy. In a perfect world, all this stuff would be together, right? And you would zoom out and make the plan and then come back in so that you know why you're working on the things that you're working on. But to be able to create all of that and to have the end goal be something that you pick and that you can have more control over. When you ask me what I think about, that's where I am with it right now. I was thinking about adding agent to my bio because now, as of yesterday, officially a licensed life and health insurance agent, right? Thank you so much. So when I think about sources of income and financial wellness in general, it's like no matter how you make your money, whether it's part-time, full-time in other businesses, part-time, full-time, overtime in your own businesses, right? Is it taken care of? What about the maintenance of your wellness, right? We talk about getting to a certain point, but what about the longevity of it and maximizing the capacity of everything that you can do? Just setting it up right and that stability that that definition was talking about is what I look forward to helping people with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it is, I think about when I think about side hustles, I
Yeah.
first of all I think about a couple of things. I think about what's your passion and what do you love to do?
Hmm.
And what are you okay getting paid money for? Because, I found a lot of people that their passion, they don't want to get paid for that. They're afraid that if they attached money to it, then they wouldn't want to continue to do it. So that's also something to be aware of within ourselves, right? Because you don't
Yes.
want to start, you know, hating doing something because
No.
money's attached to it.
Right.
Uh, and so I think there's that. And I also think about, I mean, we really are a hustling culture right now. That's that the gig economy and the things like that.
Mm.
So I also think you could try different things out. Like, see and talk to people. What are you doing? What do you like to do? What is, and see what you love. And also, like, research. I mean, 9 pages of things to
Right.
look up. And that's
Yeah.
probably not all of them,
Right.
right?
Oh, definitely, definitely not all of them.
Right?
Yeah.
Now,
And
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was also going to just put some mom wisdom out there,
Please.
of if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Hmm.
Um, and that every overnight success that I know about were people who have worked behind the scenes for years.
10 years, right? Yeah. Whew.
When I think of Rising Appalachia, Chloe and Leah, that are
Mhm.
local artists, that I have been to their concerts and watched them for years.
Yes.
And Rolling Stone picked them up a couple of years ago and said, new artists to watch, like overnight new artists to
Yeah.
watch. And I'm like, what makes you new? Right?
Hello. And the timing of when stuff is shared is always interesting. I hear what you're saying. And it is important. What are you passionate about? The first side hustle I was officially part of, Nior, shout out to Nior, right? Anti-aging skincare products, amazing line, international, great products, great leadership, great training, right? The thing though, with a beautiful young Black woman being anti-aging, like people are gonna look at me in my 20s like, okay, like why I'm not gonna be the first person that people trust on anti-aging, especially because I was in my 20s, right? And then when you ask me what bubbles up, it actually is my time in New York. Shannon, why are you not making the money? Oh, all these calls on my to-do list that I didn't actually do, they didn't get done. The money didn't come in because I didn't put the effort for the cash flow. And that was a really knee jerk lesson of, hey, look at the work. You said you were going to do this. Nothing happened. That's why nothing's happening. You got to put the energy behind it. But in addition to the energy, it's also got to be the right thing. So instead of a brand that was catered towards older white women, right, for higher end products, right, amazing products, but again, a 21-year-old college student that might look like me is not necessarily going to buy this package at this price point, right? The target audience was different. And so I had to think about that as a salesperson. And when COVID opened up the opportunity for me to start Shalo Glow, it made sense for me to be talking about shea butter and natural products and things like that. One, because I loved it and it was something that I used in addition to Nior. So I used them complementary and as collaborative, like we do a lot of things, right? But it also made sense for my target audience for the brand to be more comfortable with me having that conversation. And so the conversions were higher. My effort was more, I was more encouraged. It was more in line with me as a person and everything that I wanted to do, not only for the conversations that I'm going to have and what I'm actually going to spend my time talking about and working on, but also just in general with my life and everything as a whole picture.
Right? When you said that about New York, I thought two things bubbled up.
Yeah.
Do you remember Avon?
Yes.
Remember the Avon ladies that used to come around to the doors and they'd bring those fun catalogs, especially this time of year? Did
So
you
I
ever?
don't remember the doors, but I know people talk about it.
Right? Well, and it's probably before your time, honestly, because that
Mhm.
was back when we had door-to-door salespeople, and
Mhm.
they would literally come to your door, and they would hang the little door hanger
Little
with
samples that they had.
samples and catalogs, right?
Mm.
It's the same thing, doing the work, right? And then my Aunt Joan, who recently passed away, she was a Mary Kay cosmetic person. And so it was always funny because she was always natural, right? And she didn't wear a lot of cosmetics. But when I think about Nior, I think about Avon, I think about Mary Kay,
Mhm.
they're they did something that a lot of women had passion about, right? Their skin, their makeup, something they were using every day, and something they talked about on the regular. And these women who started these companies built ginormous companies and then brought women along with them,
Mhm.
right? I think about the power of that. I think
Right.
about the power of, and like you said, the training and the getting to know people. Now, I'm going to tell you,
Okay.
I think for a little bit, I can't remember. I've
What?
probably done them all about some of those different companies because
Okay.
people want you to be involved with them. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I stink at all of them. And the
Mm.
reason is because I love the products, and then but I don't do the secondary part, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I've just, I've been asked over the years to do the essential oils, to do this, and my answer anymore is no, thank you. Like
Mhm.
I'll buy from you, but it's not for my personality. It doesn't work.
I hear you.
Um, so that's when and I think they're great for a lot of different people. Like my aunt loved it and had a good time and had those connections and had those people. And
Yeah.
I think about Shayla Glow being different because now you have affiliates and you have these glow days and
Yes.
you're building community. So it's more than just the product. It's more than just the sales. It's about the building of community and the
Mhm.
training and
Yes.
I think about that, for us, Connect and Wisdom Press is not a side hustle, right?
No.
It is something we have turned into our business.
Mhm.
But for some of our authors, it definitely could be in
Mhm.
regards to now they're published authors and now they have access to, getting booked on podcasts, getting booked at conferences, getting paid to be keynote speakers. Um, and that's one of the reasons, one of our whys of why we created it
Mhm.
was to help elevate women's voices because
Absolutely.
it opens doors. And I think about when we talk about all these companies that we're currently naming, like it
Mhm.
opens doors.
Absolutely. And because conversations lead to another thing, lead to another thing, just like you were talking about squirreling, you get into the information and we can go all these different places, right? And that's what I was thinking when you said the task. Sometimes you don't want to do it for money if you love it. Right. And this is a question when you're asking, do I do it as a side hustle? Do I do it as a main source of income? Or do I just keep it as something I love? It really depends on how you're looking at it, right? What your goals are. Part of it, you can have your strengths and the part that you want to do, and then go into business and your team can do the other part. Your business partner can do the other part, or you can build out the team and contract people to do the other part. Or no, you don't even want to get into those details because it will take from the love that you feel like you have and the freedom to be creative, right? And then maybe it is something that you just keep as a hobby. As a hobby, you can be a doctor and be a violist at the same time. You don't have to do it as your main source of income, even if you do a few weddings and events here and there throughout the year, if that's what you choose. But it just depends on how it falls. And being creative with putting it together is what's also been something fun that we've done this year. Post COVID has made it so that the business model we use is completely different than the industry would have had available before. And the way we're able to build it so that it fits our emergencies, our team's emergencies, our life, and the way we plan on spending our time. And again, our other businesses and responsibilities. When we look at that 168 hours, we've been able to really be creative. And like you said, a lot of people are like, how do you get so much done, Christine? Pivoting, pivoting and figuring it out.
Well, pivoting, and I would also say do things now. right? That is one of my tricks, is if it needs to be done, do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And because I can tell you the things that drop off my to-do list are things that I postpone. Because we always talk about you put out fires first, and that is often the case. And you are such a good partner for me because you're so good about pre-planning. I
Thank
am
you.
good in the moment, and now let's handle it. Boom, it's done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think we need both, right? I think
Yes.
that's the other thing, is having people in our lives that complement our strengths and weaknesses, and
Yes.
really and being smart about it. I think about, um, hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glo is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glo, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about three groups really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all three steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off, the oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade,
Yes.
and it smells great, y'all. So,
Yes. Esthetician
yay.
tested. Yes. Esthetician tested and approved. Yes. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients, I work in community classes, and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
Being smart about how you set yourself up for success, and know that it can happen overnight, but that's rare. So really the planning, like I think about when you saved money and you're planning, and that you're still planning and working through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that we research and we look to the experts, and we look at folks that can help us, and we do the work. We keep showing up and doing the work, and that's a part of it. Is Yeah, I think about all that when I think
Yeah.
about this topic.
And when you say smart, I think about, being intentional, being effective. We could talk about a whole umbrella of things that go under that, right? But I also really think about specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and time bound. Like, what are the specific reasons, okay, that Shannon's strengths and Christine's strengths and weaknesses complement each other for it to make sense? Right? That's a question that you should ask before you go into partnership with somebody. And when we're thinking about conversations and planning, this is a huge thing for me, is asking more questions, like you said, being preventative. With fires, it reminds me of being a kitchen manager. And I shared about it in volume 2, working at Papado. And absolutely, shout out to the restaurant managers. Everybody who was working in the restaurant was essential for COVID, even though they put us at the bottom of the list. Okay. And if they had us on there, and you definitely are putting out fires. And I do not want to be a fire person. No, we're supposed to be shaking hands and hugging babies Lord, not shaking the babies. That is not what we're doing. Let's make sure that is straight for the record, okay? But you're supposed to be enjoying yourself, making sure that the guests are enjoying themselves, making sure that everything as it should be is as it should be, not running behind emergencies, you know? So, of course, it doesn't always happen in a way where you can be proactive, but a lot of times it's in our control, you know? And then that's why I love including the conversation and the check-in with the team throughout it. Okay, this is the plan. When you get on the field and the ball is in the air, what's going on? You know what I mean? It's going to be a different situation, and you got to stay together to make sure that that goal is accomplished.
So much to think about, right? So much to think about. And you know, we've talked about on the show before incremental steps versus leaping. And I think that it takes a combo of both sometimes, right? Because if we
Yes.
overplan it, we might not ever do it, right? We might overplan because one of my teachers, we were talking about this recently, used to, you would do a whole class, you would have everything set up, you would have everything organized, and then you'd market it. Well, now what we talk about is you see what your audience wants. Don't create a product or don't create a class that nobody's going to show up to.
Right.
Like, find out if it's needed or necessary or what's wanted, or if it's $1 million idea. I can't tell you how many times I've said those words. I've got $1 million idea. If I would have just had a team to come behind me and like really, I would be a millionaire right now. You want to know my latest
Still
one?
on the way.
You want to
What's
know
your
it?
latest?
I
Yes.
I was at a retreat center deep in the woods in East Texas, and they have dehumidifiers, right? And my folks have this at their house too. But they're these machines that take the water out of the air so things don't get musty or mildewy, and you know, it keeps things. And then, but you have to empty the water thing every time it gets filled up. It gives you, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the water tank for the machine. Yes.
So here's my $1 million idea. I think we should combine it with plant watering. I think there should be a hose that comes out of it that like waters your plants.
I like it.
I mean, because it would be recycling. It would be like, right? What's the idea to figure out the system that the dehumidifier takes the water out of the air and then it goes and waters your plants? I'm just
So, hey,
first on Women Connected in Wisdom, financial wellness. If you take this idea and run with it, give me a, what is it? Is there a finder's fee for great ideas?
say what you want, and that's what you could put on the record. Okay, what you want a percentage? What do you want? 30%?
Oh, I love it. I love the way you think.
Put it on. Don't leave money on the table. We're live. Episode 138. What are you asking for?
Asking for somebody to take this idea and run with it and give
She
me credit.
wants 30%. Okay.
That might be too much if I'm not doing the work, but you know.
No. Ask for what you want. And that's the beautiful thing, you know, and really building business, you know, when we're talking about side gigs, main sources of income, ideas that we let other people build the business for and invest in, like there's so many different ways we could do it. But first, ask for what you want. You know, like what would it look like? And when you talked about women doing so much, that's what I think about with business is really just we talk about listening to your inner authority, you know, and saying what it is, saying what we see that it could be for ourselves. A lot of times it's the fear that it won't happen, you know, but again, what our purpose is, what we're here for is going to be bigger than we see is realistic sometimes right now, or even the same size as what we've done before, because we're supposed to continue to grow and elevate into it. And so it's not going to be you by yourself. Even when you were talking about a possible overnight success, I feel like the people who would help you be that overnight success, if there is one, they still put in years of work, you know? So we're all standing on other people's shoulders and here because of sacrifices that people have made.
Right. Yeah. And that's a, you know, looking at when you say that, I think about always giving gratitude, right? And our ancestors and the folks who have come before us and the concept of Sankofa, of the reaching back to go forward. And So yes for that, and us standing on shoulders, which we talk
Mhm.
about often on the show, like about, it was just was it yesterday? Let me look, and so I can tell you. I think
Mhm.
it was yesterday. Yeah, Instagram.
That what?
Your kids about Ruby Bridges, the first Black child in an all-white public elementary school in Louisiana.
Mhm.
She turned 69 this year.
Mm.
She's only 69.
Right.
I mean, I think about that. Like, I think about the women who have come before us and rave and, doing things like working outside of the home. Like, we take that for granted. Now, I take that for granted at in my generation, and I know
Mhm.
your generation for sure. Like, but that was not to be taken for granted for my mother or my grandmother, who both
Right.
did work outside of the home.
Mhm.
And I think about that, like, and where we were allowed to work.
And that's what I was thinking about, because Black women have been outside the home, you know what I mean? Like, Black homes, that's a whole 'nother different story when you talk about financial wellness. And so when we were talking about all the things that can be done, that's what I was thinking about, prioritization, right? And it's very important when you're 9 to 5, part-time in your side hustle, full-time in your main source of income, if you are completely self-employed, to organize your time correctly, right? And that's going to be based on the roles that you have. Even if we did, let's take the numbers that we used already, right? Even if we are 80 hours in our side gig, we could still have a full-time job if we don't have children. I don't have children, right? So thankfully that's helped me be in 3 businesses and pull all this stuff off. If Shannon would have had 3 kids and 3 businesses, this year might have looked different. You know what I mean? And so knowing how to prioritize it, and that's only going to come from knowing where you come from. So
Right.
knowing that this is where I start as a Black woman born in 1993, we have to know that, okay, this is how you get to unmitigated financial freedom from there. And it looks different than it would have looked 60 years ago. Thank God we have the internet and all these other things have made it a reality and a possibility.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's something to think about, right? And yes, to giving gratitude to those who have
Yes.
come before us and paved the way, that we can even have this conversation, that we can even have this podcast, right? Like, we don't take that for granted.
No.
It is incredible when we think about this.
Yes.
Knowing that we have sisters, that we have women in other countries that still don't have this freedom
Yes.
and the right to say what they want to say
Right.
on live on airways, right?
Right.
And knowing that it is where we are in this time in the United States, where we are based out of, that gives us that privilege,
Hmm.
and that there's still work to be done, right?
Absolutely.
That
And
we,
that's the interesting thing, when you think about finances, you could say, oh, well, again, I want unmitigated financial freedom for my family, these big goals, these big numbers. And it's important, of course, to stay anchored, like you're saying, in gratitude. And remember, no matter what, even post COVID in the United States, we're still top 1% in the world, So if you have 168 hours, it might not be with Beyonce's team and doing exactly what Beyonce is doing, but what can you do with your time? What do you need to get to the next step? And you might get further than you think you can. Things definitely exceed expectations when you take incremental steps and trust the process.
yeah, it's something to think about, right? And
Yeah.
I have a big one of the things I do with my clients is with my private coaching clients is often we start with, where is the seed? Like, what do you want to create or
Mhm.
co-create?
Mhm.
And write that down. Like, write it down in a positive, like it's already coming true,
Right.
right? Write down what you want. Now, there's going to be work steps behind it. There's going to be actionable items, but the first is the thinking about your vision.
Mhm.
And, in Interplay, we have a tool where we move first and then we stop and we see what bubbles up, because we don't just want to come from our neck up and our head. We want to come from our entire bodies.
Mhm.
So one of the ways to do that, and you and I often utilize this, is, turn on music. Turn
Yeah.
on music that motivates you and
Yeah.
dance. or move or, play, and
Mhm.
stop and see what bubbles up and see
Yeah.
what wants to come up and what you're dreaming of
Mm.
or visioning,
Mm.
right? And I think that is I still use that tool for myself and for my clients. It is one of my favorites. And if
Yeah.
you all have a favorite tool, let us know. Let us know in the
Ooh.
comments. Let us know. Do you have one, Shannon, that you love?
And favorite tool, I do have a couple of tools. So can we get more specific on when I'm working for my finances or when what?
Well, it could be around financial wellness, or it could be about
Mm.
envisioning. Like when we're talking about envisioning um, a side hustle or
Mhm.
something that you want to do, anything around that.
Yeah, I think it's two things that I would say, two big things. And we were looking at it as we were working through everything before the podcast, right? The Connected Envision, the board party. Vision boards have been huge for me, right? Like looking at it, saying, okay, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want. Being intentional about it, whether it's before the school year with residents at Kennesaw State or the beginning of our year, right? As entrepreneurs, we've been doing it for, I think 2024 is going to be our third Connected Envision party. And so that's really huge for me to go back and say, wow, we did volume 2. Wow, yeah, the audiobook's out this year, and something that I do to write it out. You said make sure you write it down. I have a notebook that was given to me by Sarah, the one of the managers at Topgolf. She gave amazing gifts for Christmas and had this amazing passion tea. Love it, right? An amazing cookbook. Y'all check out this Milk Street veggies cookbook. So good. I have yet to try a recipe that's not good. And one of the other things she gave me is this notebook. She gave me a few more things, but this notebook, I actually call it my, what do I call it? A day in the life of a prodigious accumulator of wealth. And so yeah, that's who I am, a prodigious accumulator of wealth. So I write stuff down, and the day that I'm out of debt is in there, different things are in there, and things have already started coming true. The day I left my salary job is in there, and we were talking about it, the plan that I had to save up 6 months expenses to step into the business. And clearly we're doing pretty good with me out here and now about to start doing life and health insurance. But it's really important to write it down and see the steps, because you would want it to take 3 months, sure, but it took 2 years. So make sure that you're ready, and that if you need to, you take another year, and that you're looking at the goal so that when you get there, you can enjoy it as much as possible. Every step of the way is going to have things that are unexpected. The learning curve has overwhelm in it, right? So when you get overwhelmed, know that you're on the right track, know that you're in the process and the journey of learning that new thing, and that'll help you get better at that side hustle, or again to the new responsibility you have as you transfer over to it being your main source of income.
Very good info and advice.
Thank you.
As always, my friend. Well, we're about coming to that time for
Yes.
wisdom in action. So, what is this week going to hold for you when you think about financial wellness?
When I think about financial wellness, right now I'm thinking about time management, right? And really being intentional about the prioritization of everything coming out of the publication, the audiobook, getting ready for everything we're looking forward to for 2024. So I will say hashtag intentional time management.
I like it.
Yes. What about you?
I we're coming towards the end of the year, which is shocking to me. It's
Mhm.
November 15th, and
Right.
there are some things I need to check in on.
Mhm.
So I like to do some audits of my different systems and like, where is this money going? Where is that money going? This is for nonprofits. It's one of the most generous giving months.
Mhm.
And so I want to look at where are my donations? Where do they need to be? What am I doing?
Right.
So I am going to hashtag audit my systems
I love it.
as we move towards the end of this year and see where there's a couple of things that I'm probably paying on automatic that I don't need to pay anymore. So it's that time of year to look and make a nourishing plan, spending plan for the holidays. That's my
I'm gonna put it down. Make a nourishing spending plan.
right. Those are my two things.
Uh-oh.
Anything that our listeners need to know about as we're going to wrap episode 138?
A couple of things. Yes, we have a couple of things for you guys. So, like we said, it is the holidays, right? It is November 15th. So next week, we will not be here live. One of those rare weeks that we are taking off. We are going to uphold our values and take some time to be with our loved ones. So are we doing a replay? What are we doing for next week?
We need to check that out and figure it out.
We'll follow up for you guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind putting up a replay of a gratitude episode. I don't celebrate the traditional holiday, but I do celebrate being with my family and friends and giving gratitude. So yeah, but we won't be here live. We're going to take some time, and because last year we did not, and that was a little wild.
We found it not as effective as possible. So we're going to take the space and enjoy and celebrate. Yeah.
And, Shannon, you mentioned our Connected Vision party. If people want to go ahead and put that on their calendars.
January 10th.
January 10th. And
January 10th.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we put that up on the website, and we will create the event and put it in our show notes so folks can find it. And yes,
and I have 2 other events for you guys too. So this Saturday, you were talking about the community with Shaylo Glo. The Glo Club is meeting at the retail space, 228 Auburn Avenue, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30303. Right now, all the tickets are sold out. So I have followed up to make sure, that all of our seats are taken, but I will let you guys know. So I'm planning on checking some emails, following up with our account and our space to make sure that as many people can come as possible. But the Glo Club, again, thank you. Yes. You guys are invited on Saturday. We're going to have Jeremy of Soulful Sound Studio there giving us a sound bath. Rika's going to be there. She's been on the podcast giving some massages, and they're like 15 minutes. So we had a really good time last time, and that's from 1 to 4. And then we have Small Business Saturday. That's going to be next weekend. If you guys want to come out and celebrate with us, that is Shaylo Glo's 1-year anniversary at the retail space. And we'll have some holiday deals. We'll have a demo. We have some good stuff planned for you guys. So come visit us at the retail space the next 2 Saturdays.
And they can also get Women Connected in Wisdom, Volume 1 and Volume 2. We're going to make sure we have that there for you on that Saturday. So it'll be super fun. Super fun. Well, congrats on all of that. Well done, my friend. I know
Thank you so much.
Hard towards that. So stuff happening.
Yes.
Y'all.
Okay. We will be back after the holidays and family time, right? With the end of season 16. In the meantime, don't forget,
be well,
be wise, and be whole. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.